Hello and welcome back to another part of Design Your Own Level tutorial. In the previous video what we did was create this coffee table over here. So continuing in that process, what we're going to do is create like the little side table units like this inside of Blender for Unreal Engine 4. So essentially it's almost an identical process that we're going to go through. We're just going to create like a completely different looking table. So for reference, I'm not too sure what the height of this would be. We can just have a look. That almost looks to be like the same height as the couch, as you can see there. But there in the back, it's a different one that basically uses the same model over here, but it's a different size. So another thing that I just quickly in mentioning this is what you could always do is if you have your model, and we could just like duplicate, you could duplicate a copy by holding Alt and just dragging a copy away, is you could always, I think it's on the X-axis, let's see, you can always just set the scale on one of the axes a little bit wider. Now if your model doesn't have a texture, now this would be ideal because there would be no texture stretching. It literally would just work on the material itself. So that is essentially what I believe they did on some sections over here. You would take it, I think that one over there is exactly the same model as this one. They just scaled it down and stretched it out a little bit. But because there is no texture applied to it, they could get away with it because there would be no texture warping or stretching. So okay, well, we can delete that one. So just to keep that in mind, we can actually get started with this. So this was our previous model. I'm just going to move it to another layer. And we're going to have a look. Actually, I wanted it to move it to that layer. Let's just check. And then unhide everything on here. But hide that one again. And we're going to use the couch as reference because in the video that is almost like the length of the couch over there, the couch top piece. So it's actually a very tall table section over there. So we're going to use the couch as the reference, and let's get started with creating the model. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same process as before. So I'm going to hit Shift A, I'm going to add a plane, and I'm going to scale it down. So I believe that this, even though it's fairly high, it's probably about, oh, that seems about right, a little bit smaller than our coffee table and just a little bit larger. So, okay, this isn't snapping quite to grid, so I just want to do that. A little bit smaller in width than the coffee table, so, but a little bit taller than a coffee table. So we're just going to drag this up. And this model specifically is a little bit more difficult because it actually has like a leg piece at the bottom over there, and then it branches out. So essentially when you want to think of this coffee, or not coffee table, but this table section over here, think of it as 4 different models that are joined together. Like our coffee table was essentially 2 different models joined together, this is going to be 4 different models. So let's just drag that off again. So what I'm going to do is I believe that this is going to be like the top section. And I'm just going to drag it off 2 units off of the ground, and then I'm going to extrude it. I think we're going to do it all the way to about there. So we have almost a cube, and that is our section over there. And then I'm going to go Z to wireframe mode, select this bottom part. Then instead of extruding, I'm going to hit Shift D. And then I'm going to hit S to scale, holding Control, and scale it 1 unit smaller. And then hit E to extrude. And there we go. So now you got your base piece and your leg piece. And then if we could just go back to the video, you'll see that this piece over here isn't actually like a solid white block. It's got like a little curved corner over there. I think one of the previous sections I actually did look down the area just to see what it looks like. I think it might be here or later on. Nope. Oh, there we go. So you can see that it actually has got a slight bit of a corner there to the side to it. So what we can do now is I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to Z into wireframe mode, Shift D, and then I'm going to scale this 1 unit smaller. I'm just going to C, and then E to extrude 2 units up, E to extrude again, scale in. Actually, we only wanted to scale about 2 units, so I'll snap that to the grid. E to extrude, and then E to extrude again. Snap to grid, E to extrude. Oh, okay. It's not working with me. Let's try again. E to extrude. There we go. Okay, so that's not quite it, and you'll notice that I did do something. I extruded, I scaled like the complete side of the model. So this will be almost like a uniform side. Every side will match up to the next one. We can always just move one up, but we just want to check the model a little bit more. So what I did was, because I hit scale and I didn't scale to a specific axis, everything like scaled inwards perfectly. But this section over here should actually be all the way to the edge, like so. And we're going to do the same with this section over here. So just drag it all the way to the edge. So if you look at it like that, there we go. We just go back to our reference. You can see that's what it looks like. Alright, so just one more thing. I want to take this part over here. This entire section, and then maybe move it up. There we go. 2 units. So it is slightly taller. And then I'm going to select this entire top piece again. I'm going to hit Shift D, and then I'm going to scale it. I'm just going to try and snap that to grid, and then E to extrude 2 units up. And I think that should be okay, except that it's going over a little bit, and it shouldn't actually be. We should maybe just move it Z in wireframe mode, maybe move it like so. And the same with this one over here. So it only overlaps on the sides and not from the front. So let's just take a look at our image here again. I think that might be a little bit taller, or this section might actually be a little bit shorter. So we could just keep on looking at it. So I think what I'm going to do here is take this and grab it and move it down, and then take the entire section and grab it and move it down. So you can see that's 1 unit, that's 1 unit. We can take this one and move it down. Let's see what that looks like. That looks a little bit better. Though I do think that maybe my section that I created over here, what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to select this part, I'm just going to hide it, otherwise I'm going to keep on selecting the faces on that side. So I'm going to take this piece over here, and I'm actually just going to move it 1 unit back. Before I moved it 2 units up when I was doing the scaling, so I'm just going to move it like 1 unit back, unhide everything, look at it now, and I think that's perfect. I don't believe that this side actually has like a size difference over there. So we can actually, if we go into this view from this side, maybe just move this up and then do the same over here, and then just see what it looks like. Okay, I like that a lot more. So it all really depends on what you want to do with this particular section. You don't have to copy my design exactly or this design exactly. You just kind of like go for what looks good on your model. So let's just see here. Okay. I just want to forward a little bit so I can see. As you can see, it's a lot thinner actually. But it also seems like it's completely flat on the sides, like here. Okay, so I'm going to take this and maybe move that one in. Take that one, move that one in, take the entire section, move it up one, and the same with this one, move it up one. And then I'm just going to hide this piece quickly, hide it, and I want to move this so that it is completely flat, because it's going to bother me. I want to get something that looks fairly similar to the mirror's edge thing, and I wasn't matching up quite to that, but now I believe it does. Okay, so now all the model pieces, they are joined into one model, so we can just click UV unwrap, do the smart UV project, and set the margins to 0.03, and you can see what that looks like. Now, bear in mind, once again, I cannot stress this more. If you are going to texture this object, you do want to spend some time on your UV maps. But because this particular object will literally only have a material attached to it, you do not require the same amount of detail. It does not require a texture, it just requires a solid color. So there is not going to be any additional details. If you try and texture this properly, these UV maps might not work properly, and it will probably give you texture warping and things like that, as I explained in the previous video. So just bear that in mind, that this is not the ideal way to do it. Okay, so what we want to do now is again separate our materials. So essentially, the way I see it from the video is that you have this and this piece over here, they have the same black material attached to it, and this white material, and I believe the base leg of this thing has a white material. So essentially this piece over here is going to be a white material, and this piece over here as well. So we're going to select both of them, hit Ctrl L, and we're going to go to Materials tab, click New, and call this, actually we don't have to give it a name because we're going to give it a name inside of Unreal Engine 4. So we can literally just click Assign. And then do the same with this one as well. Hit Ctrl L to select both of them. Click the plus, click New, and just click Assign. Alright, so that's actually that model done. Now what we're quickly going to do is move it to the center of the world. Actually, let's just hide that one. We're going to move it to the center of the world so that the corners are nicely lined up. And I'm going to click File, Export, FBX. So selected objects, geometries on edge, and then armatures, add leaf bones. But also notice that we did not enable smooth shading for this, because this is another glass-like object or reflective object that will not really benefit from the smooth shading. So we're just going to click Export, FBX, and I'm going to call this corner tables. What should we? Yeah, well, we can call it corner table. Here we go. Click Export. We're going to jump over to Unreal Engine 4. Click Import, and corner table.fbx. Click Import. You can drag it into the world. The size actually looks pretty good, even though I tried to make it the scaling was supposed to be a little bit larger, so we can go with our normal 1.25 scaling. So it makes it a little bit above that. Okay, so we're going to move it roughly to where it is inside of our level reference. So that looks okay. Let's see, that looks fine. Those are those sides. Now what we can do is, because the materials are going to be essentially the same, we can duplicate these materials and just like apply them onto our model. So the coffee table materials are essentially the same as this, but we don't need to create new materials. We can literally just grab our material that we've already made and then just apply it. And there we go. Now you can start seeing the details. And I'm actually pretty happy that I made those sides flat, so they're starting to look a lot more, or they look a lot more like the object created inside of Mirror's Edge. So now we can just hold Alt and duplicate. And we can duplicate this a couple of times. If you actually go back to the video, you can see that this is actually duplicated a couple of times. I think in total it is duplicated 6 times. So we can do that just in Unreal Engine 4. There we go. Already did it 3 times, so let's do 6 times. And then just see what that looks like. If it actually lines up with the video area itself. And I believe it does a pretty good job of it. So we can just select all of these and maybe move them somewhere over here. Gonna have to get the sizes right. But what you can also do is, as I explained in the beginning of the video, is we, for instance, can change the size. So we can do the scaling a little bit different, and with it only having a single material with which just is reflective and not any textures attached to it, it doesn't cause any warping. So if you want to make only 2 of these and then just double the size of them on every single point, then you're more than welcome to do that. You do not need to like stack them all up together. So it all really depends on what you want to do with this. So what I'm going to do, I think, for here is then make these 2 side ones a little bit taller or longer. Let's do it like that. There we go. But now obviously you are going to notice one thing, that those do not quite match up. So it all really depends. You might want to use this separately or put in a little gap between them. So it all really depends on what you want to do. Okay, well, that said, now we're done and we're starting to get a little bit closer to filling our level with its gaps or with all the items that we created. Just one more thing that I want to touch up is, as I said before, those items over there seem to be like exact duplicates of these ones over here, just scaled smaller. And we can quickly test that theory by just doing this, dragging one off. I'm going to rotate it. Sorry, and then just do that. And I'm going to give it its normal 1:1 scaling so that it's actually smaller, and then on the x-axis I think I'm going to scale it by 3. Actually, that says then y-axis by 3. There we go. So I'm going to do that, drag that to about there. Let's just see, that actually follows like the entire side of the wall, it seems. So I'm going to do it like this, and then I'm just going to duplicate it a couple of times. So there's a little bit of a breakup on it. We can select these and then duplicate it. Alright, and that looks okay. And now you start to see that we are starting to get a little bit more detail. So if we hit play, even though this part and this part is essentially the same model, with the way that it's scaled and just used differently and with the size difference, you can see that it looks like two completely different models, but they're not. So I'm quite happy with the way that it came out. I'm just going to move that up a little bit here. And I think actually inside of Mirror's Edge, they repeat that model again over here. And that actually does look like a different model. So we might actually just have to make a different model for this one over here. Okay, so if you like what you saw, leave a like. If you didn't, you can leave a dislike. Please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.